Welcome to Comment with me, George Galloway, here on Press TV, still the voice of the voiceless. Comment is the big conversation. It's the great debate, but it can only be a debate if you join in. That's why, above all, I need your telephone calls on 44208-601-4555. You call us, we'll call you back, establish a clear line, and remember, if you get on the television with me, the volume on your television has to be at 0, or I'll have to press swiftly on. The SMS number is 447800008066, or you can email me at comment@presstv.co.uk. And a big welcome, as always, at this time to the listeners of Colourful Radio, based in London, but spreading the colour throughout the land. And listeners to Colourful Radio should note that the above details, phone numbers, etc., are for this show only. Now, of course, what I shall say tonight represents only my view. It does not represent necessarily the view of anybody else, but you have to know it is my view. Nobody paid me to hold it. Nobody could stop me from expressing it. And the two subjects that we are discussing this evening are controversial indeed. There was a dastardly attack this week on the Iranian embassy in Beirut, in which scores, maybe hundreds of people were killed or wounded or maimed. At least 25 people were killed, perhaps 125 were cruelly maimed. Most of them innocent bystanders with nothing to do with the embassy. Some of them staff in the embassy, only one of them a diplomat in the embassy. Not that diplomats or embassies are legitimate targets in any case. At least that's what Western countries would say about any attack upon their embassies. They would be on the television wringing their hands, talking about the death of diplomacy if embassies become unmanageable because of a lack of security. But not many of the countries who would be wringing their hands have even said a cheep about this horrific attack on the embassy in Beirut. And the media has been virtually silent about it. Just ask yourself this. If somebody had attacked a British embassy, killed 25, maimed 125 in a totally unprovoked, cowardly terrorist attack, well, it would be a pretty big news story in Britain, not just today or yesterday, but for the next months and years ahead. Indeed, a war might well be launched on the back of it. Ask yourself if the so-called mainstream media has responded in the same way to the attack upon Iran. Now, I have a theory. It's only a theory, but let me run it past you. This attack was mounted at this time on the Iranian embassy to destroy the outcome of the nuclear talks by making Iran so angry that they would be more intransigent than they would otherwise be on the question of the nuclear talks. I want to make a second point, and it's one that Western viewers have to seriously consider. This act of terrorism, murder most foul, was carried out by Al-Qaeda-inspired sectarian fanatics who are being paid and armed in Syria, next door, by the very Western countries that at the talks in Geneva are demanding concessions from Iran. How's that for double standards? How's that for hypocrisy? You're insisting on a country giving up its legitimate, legal, moral right to nuclear power. In the case of France, virtually entirely dictating the whole future of a sovereign country, a great civilization called Iran, whilst France is one of the most belligerent, hawkish, and generous supporters of the very Al-Qaeda fanatics who carried out this act of mass murder in Beirut this week. The Al-Qaeda outfit that claimed responsibility said that it had been carried out by faithful Sunnis from Lebanon. Well, I don't know what kind of Sunnis they would be to cause this kind of carnage to entirely innocent civilian people, bystanders overwhelmingly for the most part. I don't know if they were Lebanese. That's a matter of conjecture. At least they were claimed to be Lebanese. But if they were Lebanese, then the sectarian hatred being expressed in that attack on the embassy was an expression of hatred and contempt for the majority of the Lebanese people. They are, if they are Lebanese, an enemy within that is growing increasingly murderous with these kind of sectarian attacks. They hope to provoke a sectarian backlash in Syria. But the representatives of the majority of the Lebanese, I should say, are too wise for that. And they'll wait a long time before the leadership of the Shia population in Lebanon begins to take the bait of this kind of provocation. As I say, these are just my views. They may be right, they may be wrong, but they are my views. But this show is all about me hearing your views and arguing with them. And the first person up is Bashir in Birmingham, in England. Bashir, what do you hope for in the nuclear talks?
Basically, I don't believe that these talks are going to get anybody anywhere, because as a matter of fact, the reason they made and invented, created nuclear warheads was the sole purpose was to use them. If you think they're going to have nuclear weapons and sit on them and wait for a rainy day, you're mistaken. This war is going directly to the Middle East, not Europe, not Russia, not China. It's not against the Arabs, it's against Islam. And their main objective, they've got trade embargoes here, there, you can't sell weapons, but there's private organizations that are funding, supporting militia who are working on their behalf, not on behalf of the Muslims who are trying to make peace. You take Egypt, for example, they had a democratic election. Morsi was democratically elected, and yet they toppled him. Why was there no argument against the military of Egypt then that they are creating this massacre of mass murder in Egypt, and yet the media has no say whatsoever because they are controlled by the United States and Israel and Great Britain and European Union?
I mean, well said, Bashir in Birmingham. I couldn't disagree with any of that. Let's hear what Frank in Yorkshire in England has to say. Go ahead, Frank. Go on, Frank, you're on the air.
Hi, George.
Hello there, go ahead, Frank.
I did all right, man.
Go ahead.
I'm a Shipley lad, yeah.
Excellent, welcome, Frank, go ahead.
Right, I don't know where to start with this law, you know what I mean? I think the Zionists have got a lot to do with this in Beirut. Yeah, I really do. You know, they've got France on the side, haven't they? Trying to destroy this agreement they're trying to get in Geneva, yeah. It's obviously they're behind it, you know what I mean? And then you got the Saudis funding all this shenanigans in Syria. Right, and then where else do I start? You know, I can go on about millions of things, George.
No, you've done well, Frank. You've done well. And everything that you said is incontestably true. Israel is in objective alliance with Al-Qaeda in Syria and, by extension, in Lebanon. This is incontestably true. The Israeli Air Force has been regularly bombing Syria.
Yeah, I know.
The Israeli state is working 24/7 to bring about a victory for fanatic extremists in Syria. And by extension, it must follow that they are on the side of such sectarian extremists as are operating in Lebanon. Secondly, Saudi Arabia, as they call it, does not even attempt to deny that it is the major funder and weaponizer of these fanatics in Syria and, by extension, in Lebanon. And France, as you rightly imply, the former colonial power, that divided and ruled the people of Lebanon and Syria when they were all one people, is up to its neck in the sectarian conflict in Syria and by extension in Lebanon. And the very same France has the gall to turn up in Geneva and block an agreement on the nuclear issue, making demands that even Netanyahu couldn't outbid, to force Iran into abandoning its inalienable legal and moral right to have peaceful nuclear energy. So a good call, Frank, not least because you allowed me to say all that in return. Bakir is in Denmark. How has your country condemned the attacks, my friend? Has it been noisy, voluble? Have the Danish government been out fighting against this fanaticism that they so fear in their own country, Bakir?
Hello, Georgia. First of all, I would like to send my condolences out to the victims in Lebanon, and and then I will condemn Al-Qaeda for their barbaric act against the Lebanese people, and also the Iranian diplomat who was killed Tuesday morning.
Yeah, a cultural attaché.
Yeah. George, these takfiris in Syria, they are beginning to see that they're losing the war in Syria, so now they think they can come to Lebanon and kill innocent civilians. So
you're right,
that's my point, George. Yeah. So
well, the question is, what are the Western countries that would cry to high heaven about any such murderous attack on their own embassies? What are they saying and doing about it in this case, Bakir?
Just because their guys are losing in Syria, and they know that Iran is backing the government of Syria, and also Hezbollah are also in Syria to fight against the Takfiris, so they don't like to see that their guys are losing in Syria.
Well, you're right, and these people, these hypocrites, are ready to fight to the last drop of Syrian and Lebanese people's blood. Thanks for that, Bakir in Denmark. Let's go to Bahrain and talk to Hussein. Hussein, what do you hope for in these nuclear talks? Hussein, you're on the air.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Go on.
Hello, George. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, regarding the nuclear talks in Geneva, I believe eventually the deal will be signed, and by signing this deal, I think that the problem which is in Middle East or in this region will eventually be solved. This is a sign, the beginning, and this is a good sign if the deal sign, and all the problem which is in Lebanon, it is in Syria, or even in my country here. I think this will eventually, along with that, it will solve this problem. And I would like to have your viewpoint on this.
Well, I'll tell you what my viewpoint is. The ordinary people in Iran have suffered long enough from these cruel and vindictive and baseless and unjustified sanctions. Iran has the right to demand the removal of these sanctions, which are making the ordinary Iranian people bleed. Not the leadership in Iran, the ordinary man and woman and child in Iran are bleeding from these sanctions. And Iran has the right to demand that they are lifted. Secondly, Iran has the legal, moral, inalienable right to have peaceful nuclear energy. Every other country in the world has the same right, and many, indeed, increasingly, large numbers of these countries have exercised that right. There is no evidence that Iran intends to build a nuclear weapon, unlike Israel, unlike the Permanent Five. Indeed, the only reason they are the Permanent Five is that they have nuclear weapons, which gives them a permanent seat at the table in the Security Council and a veto on any matter that comes before the Security Council. Iran does not want to join that club. Indeed, is theologically by fatwa precluded from doing so. And there is no evidence that Iran has ever sought to deceive the so-called international community on this question. Therefore, these sanctions are utterly without justification, and the talks must lead to the lifting of those sanctions. That's my point of view. Hussein in Bahrain, thanks for that call. Nasser is in London. I could ask you, Nasser, how has our country condemned the attacks? The answer is very quietly. Nasser, go ahead.
Yes.
Go on.
Well, yes, good evening, George.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you.
Actually, there is no single country who condemned the bombing of Beirut, except Iran, of course. Now, it shows you this is the work, is their work. It's nothing to do with the Sunni. They're trying to divert in Egypt, the problem in Syria, the problem in Afghanistan, in Iraq, etc., etc., etc. Now, if we use our brain, now the killing, this bombing is condemned by all religion. Now, what kind of human being can do that? There is no objective in theology or anything. This is an objective politic to destroy Hezbollah, to destroy Iran, to destroy the Sunni, to destroy the Shia. We all belong to one, to the Quran. And if you look at it, I think it's the work of the Zionists. As usual, we know where it's come from.
Well, I don't know. They probably did find some useful idiots to blow themselves up and kill themselves. I don't think many Israelis would be in the queue for doing that. But the fact is, these fanatic extremists are working for Israel, Britain, America, and France in Syria. This is so obviously an extension of the conflict in Syria. As an earlier caller said, they're losing the war in Syria. So some of them are now murdering on a huge scale innocent people in Lebanon, as indeed they will back in London when they come back, or in Denmark, or in Amsterdam, or in Brussels, or in Paris. This is the madness, Nasser, of this Western policy. Thanks for that great call. Abdurrazak is in Libya, and I want to hear him. Abdurrazak, welcome.
He's in Libya.
Go ahead, put your volume down at 0, please.
Yes, good evening, sir.
Good evening to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, sir, I want to make something clear that, it's a very painful that somebody to be a Muslim. And, I want to talk about this Saudi Arabia, Qataris, and the UAE, Bahrain. They have caused a lot of things for Muslim people around the world. And they've been pretending as a Muslim people. I don't know what they call Sunni or Shia. They're talking about they call themselves as a Sunni people. I mean, what the work that they are doing, this is not what Sunni people are doing. Somebody, can you believe that somebody has paid a lot?
Well, let's, for the avoidance of doubt, let's imagine, I know it takes a stretch, that there are some Sunni Muslims out there who haven't quite worked this out. Saddam Hussein was a Sunni and it didn't save him. Gaddafi was a Sunni and it didn't save him. The Palestinian people are overwhelmingly Sunni Muslim and it hasn't saved them.
Yes, sir. That's
the people in Gaza who are being starved to death are Sunnis and it didn't save them. Morsi, President Morsi, was a Sunni. The Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt are Sunni and it didn't save them. The imperial powers and Zionism don't give a damn whether somebody is Sunni or Shia. They're ready to kill everybody They're ready to oppress everybody. But if they can persuade one to kill the other, one to oppress the other, and they don't have to do it themselves, well, why shouldn't they? It's quite good business, after all. Thanks for that call from Libya. Assad Azouni is in Jordan. Don't get many calls from Jordan. Assad Azouni, welcome to the show.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. How are you, George?
By the grace of God, good.
Fine.
By the grace of God, good. Go ahead, sir.
I'm happy to talk to you now. I'm very, very happy to talk to you now because I tried many, many times, but I failed.
Well, you're welcome.
Anyhow,
go ahead. You've got the air now. Go ahead. Take it.
Yeah. Regarding to what had happened yesterday in Beirut, it is Israel who implemented, who is beyond this crime, ignoring the hand that implemented the crime. But Israel is the goal of everything bad had happened in this area during or since 1948 up to now. As you know, Mr. George, that Lebanon has to pay the price every month, if we don't say every day, and they lose many thousands of their persons or citizenships. And also, as you know, that how many times that Israel attacked Lebanon.
Well, I do. I'll tell you what, brother. I think the two subjects we're discussing tonight are connected. I'm sure that Israel encouraged, paid for, maybe armed and weaponized the group that attacked the Iranian embassy yesterday in order to set alight a sense of militancy inside Iran that would scupper the talks on the nuclear question. I'm not saying that Israel did the deed. I'm sure they didn't because there was a suicide bomber, at least one, involved. And no Israeli would commit suicide for Netanyahu. I know that. But it suits Israel's purpose so perfectly that I believe that imperialism encouraged this crime. What do you say?
Also, you know that, Mr. George, that Netanyahu and all the Israeli officials are the top of terrorists in the area, in the history at all. They are planning after Syria to attack Hezbollah in Lebanon. After that, they are doing their best to push the international society to make an attack against Iran. But up to now, nobody agreed to attack Iran regarding to Israeli pressure. And this is the big problem regarding to the Israelis. They are seeking to any side to make a war against Iran because Israel cannot alone attack Iran.
Yeah.
They know the result well. Right,
well,
George?
look, I agree with all of that. Assad Azouni, my friend in Jordan, where we don't get many calls, but where I have very many friends. And I'm very grateful to you for calling me, because this is a voice from inside an Arab country which is clear and can see with its eyes exactly what this is all about. And if every person in every Arab country, whatever sect they belong to, could see things as clearly as you, brother, then we wouldn't be in the mess that we are in. We're asking, how has your country condemned the attack on the Iranian embassy in Beirut yesterday? And it may be a linked question, what do you hope for the nuclear talks? God willing, I'll be back in just 3 minutes' time with the second half of Comment. Don't miss it. Welcome back to Comment with me, George Galloway, here on Press TV, still the voice of the voiceless. We're talking about the murderous attack on the Iranian embassy in Beirut yesterday, which killed and maimed perhaps hundreds of people. We're asking how your country condemned the attacks. Quietly, probably, if at all, and certainly not in the language and with the volume that they would have if the subject or object of the attacks had been, say, an American or British or French embassy in the region. And I'm extending or arguing the potential theory that the provocation of this attack on the Iranian embassy in Beirut was connected to today's talks in Geneva, because they are very worried that Iran will satisfy international public opinion that their peaceful nuclear program is no danger to anyone. And the Western countries, especially France, don't want to take yes for an answer. And so the Al-Qaeda-sponsored, armed and buttressed terrorist elements that are operating in Syria in plain view, in plain sight, not hidden at all, carried out this dastardly attack in Beirut. It's just a theory, but it seems to me to have some plausibility. Let's hear from a young man of 14 years whose wisdom would shame many a man 2 or 3 times his age. Robert in Scotland. Go ahead, Robert.
Good evening, George.
Good evening to you, sir.
Personally, I'm ashamed that our government, which has condemned every single terrorist attack against the West and Israel, is refusing to condemn or even say a word about this atrocity. But why would they? These are exactly the same people that we are bankrolling and supplying that murdered these people in what was a merciless, cowardly and unjustified attack on another country's embassy. In my opinion, these Al-Qaeda fanatics carried out this attack to get at Iran and Hezbollah. I think they intended for Iran's talks with the West to derail so badly and for something to go so horribly wrong that it would cut off Iran's support for Hezbollah, and that would give them an advantage over Hezbollah and Iran in the war in Syria. And I agree with you, if this attack was carried out by 2 Lebanese Sunnis, it would mean that the violent horror of the sectarian hatred and war, brother against brother, has spilled over from Syria, and that Lebanon may fall into just as bloody a battle as Syria has.
Extraordinary. Robert in Scotland, the most precocious, the wisest, the most militant 14-year-old in the country. The most precocious since, well, I was 14, if I may say so. Alex is in London. Let's hear from Alex. Go ahead. Alex, you're on the air.
Hi, good afternoon, George.
Good evening to you. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I would like to say something about the nuclear deal that's happening with Iran right now.
Yes.
I think what Netanyahu is doing is actually against the national interest of Israel, because I think we've already seen that the majority of the world is for this deal. The majority of the world wants to see some sort of peace between Iran and the West. And when Netanyahu, who already has lost many friends around the world, is going around trying to derail this deal, it doesn't do any favors for his country. I think, even with America, which is probably one of the only allies left for Israel, perhaps maybe only France, even they are probably now going to start thinking, well, is Israel really our friend? When America is trying to achieve some sort of a deal and Israel is trying to destroy it, it just looks silly. And just the final thing I'd say is, if Netanyahu actually spent as much time on the Israel-Palestine conflict, trying to solve it, as he does right now, trying to derail this deal with Iran, I think the Israel-Palestine deal would have happened many, many years ago.
Well, of course, Alex, one of the reasons for the hyperactivity of the gangster Netanyahu is to avoid dealing with the Palestinian question and to divert everyone's attention from the crimes of the settler state that they call Israel, to divert attention from those crimes onto other matters. It's an old tactic. Look over there. If you look over there, you're not looking over here. And you're absolutely right that the United States is increasingly asking itself, is Israel our friend? It's a very peculiar state of affairs when the tail seems able endlessly to wag the dog rather than the dog wagging the tail. And more people in the United States can see that. But the pro-Israel lobby in the United States is very powerful in the political system. And until American politicians, especially presidents who know the truth and are in their second term and cannot be threatened by anyone and any lobby, actually find the courage to stand up and say in public what they say in private, I'm afraid we're locked into a number of these problems. Alex in London, thanks. Nchima in South Africa is on the line on the nuclear issue. Welcome to the show, my friend. Hello, South Africa. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, George.
Walaikum salam. Welcome. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, how are you? George, I just want to comment a little bit on the embassy bombing in Beirut.
Yes.
The cultural consulate or attaché, I'm not sure what they call it.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, George, I just want to say one thing about this type of people. These are not Muslims. They are not Christians. They don't qualify to be called anything. They are not even human beings. History is replete with such example of people, you know. If you can remember, you know, I'm just reminded of this example because I know Muslims are in the month of Muharram, of the atrocities that this very type of people with this type of thinking have done to the grandson of their own prophet. And they want to claim to be Muslims to the exclusion of everyone else. So this type of people, we've been having them throughout history, but I think Muslims, Shia and Sunni must wake up, all of them, to understand that these are not Muslims. They are not human beings, actually. All of us must rise and fight against this type of people.
Well, a very powerful call from South Africa, where they know a thing or two about this kind of sectarian hatred. After all, the AWB and the other terrorist remnants of the apartheid system carried out exactly these kind of terrorist attacks as far as they were able to do. But they were defeated, and liberation came to South Africa and will come to the rest of the world. Of that, I'm sure. Thanks for the call, my friend. Here's Rafiq in Leicester, in England. Rafiq, welcome.
Well, good evening, George.
Good evening.
Right. My comments on this bombing, it was expected anyway. And everywhere you see in Egypt, some soldier died, in Syria, and then everywhere. This is expected only because of one country which carries a cancer cell, that's Israel. And if nobody does anything about it, it's going to get worse. And I feel sorry. I mean, you know, it's all American people it's America and all those people who are supporting these terrorists to shoot and kill are the ones that have done it. So why are we talking about that, you know, we're feeling sorry? I mean, we're feeling sorry genuinely, but why not America coming involved in it and saying, look, that's bad?
Well, I'll tell you what, Rafiq, I mean, I know the spirit behind the contribution that you made, but I really have to insist on this point. It wasn't just Israel, and it's not just for Israel. France, America, Britain, other countries, so-called Saudi Arabia, and other countries in the Persian Gulf are funding and arming and supporting in every conceivable way the kind of people who blew themselves up outside the Iranian embassy, murdering on a huge scale. It was not an Israeli that blew himself up in Beirut. It was a Muslim who blew himself up in Beirut to kill as many other Muslims as he could. So whilst I understand the point that you are making, we cannot live in denial. You and I, you in Leicester, me in London, me in Bradford, me wherever I travel in the world where the majority of Muslims are Sunni, have to argue as clearly as possible to this whole ummah that this kind of insane sectarianism has nothing to do with Islam, has nothing to do with the Sunnah, has nothing to do with following the message and the line of the Prophet, and above all, has nothing to do with serving God. Thanks for that, Rafiq. Ahmad's on the line in Tehran. Ahmad, how are the nuclear talks looking from your standpoint in Tehran? Go ahead.
Hello and good evening, dear George.
Good evening.
Let me first start with the video message of my foreign minister, Mr. Zarif, with a very beautiful sentence that he has stated that what is dignity and what is respect. Do these values need any negotiation? I mean, these are the principles that people in Europe, people in America should bear in mind, that respecting other nations does not need any negotiation. And secondly, let me share with you that a very dangerous interpretation of NPT is here these days. I have heard that some politicians in the West have said that according to NPT, enriching uranium is not included. I mean, don't they think that these dangerous interpretation of NPT will not only apply to Iran? I mean, I just read the full text of NPT Article 4 a couple of minutes ago. It is very clearly stated that in Article 4, it is stating that nothing in this treaty shall be interpreted as affecting the inalienable right of all the parties to the treaty to develop, research, production, and use of nuclear energy for peaceful purposes.
Great call, Ahmad. Very, very clear and fresh from just a few minutes ago in your reading. Thanks very much indeed. Ahmad in Tehran. Let's go back to England, in Wolverhampton to be precise, to talk to Amal. Amal, welcome to the show.
Assalamu alaikum, George Galloway.
Wa alaikum salam. Welcome, madam.
I'd like to send my condolence of the family of the martyr. May Allah replace for them in better place where they are today. Secondly, I'd like to send a condemnation of the heirs of Lebanon. We've been through many times. We've been through the civil war, George, as you know in the history. But what I will tell them, wherever they are, whoever they are, 1,000 times, you will not defeat us. You will not divide us. You will not separate us. I know the one who carried on that was not Israeli. They're not even there to come to our area. We know that. The time we used to run passed away. We faced them, they run for surely. But this was done by my own people. When I say my own people, I mean my own Muslim brother, my own Muslim Arab. It's not Pakistani, it's not Afghani, it's the Arab who carry on that hatred. We was the first Arab nation who defeated the states of Israel. Hezbollah, the people of Hezbollah. Hezbollah is not Iranian, it's Lebanese. We are Arab, we are not Farsi. They say it and they give it names on the Iranian, Farsi, Kufri. They accept that. But Hezbollah is an Arab. We are the first who defeated any Israeli aggression. This time you cannot defeat Hezbollah. You cannot defeat Lebanon. And I've sent my condemnation to the family of the Iranian martyr. And
well,
I'm really
Amal, go on.
In my earth and Lebanon, we feel with you and we say sorry. And what you done for us, there is no Arab who I can compare on your people of Iran. There is no Arab I will change on you. There is no Arab who I want to be near than you, because you are truly and you follow with justice. If my brother is not justice, I will leave him, because because we say Labbaik Ya Hussein means Labbaik Ya Hussein. This is the message, the one who wants to destroy and cut the legs of the Muslim. You cannot destroy in Lebanon. Christian, Sunni, Shia, we are stand each other and we will defeat you. We will defeat you. We will, inshallah. George Galloway, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. A very, very powerful call from Wolverhampton in England, from a Muslim woman who is clearer than any of the leaders of the Arab countries. And I hope that her message is heard. Abu Bakr is in Algeria. Let's hear from him. Abu Bakr, welcome.
Hello. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Galloway.
Nice to talk to you. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I want to first thank you for the good work that you are doing. And then, yes.
Thank you. La shukra ala wajib.
You know, I want to ask, where is the democracy in this world? You know, Iran that is trying to develop a peaceful nuclear power for its economy. And the West are denying it, you know. And then they are not talking about these Israelis who have got nuclear bombs and are killing these Palestinians just for nothing. Nobody is talking about that. But somebody who is trying to develop a peaceful program for its own development, and then people are going against it. Where is the truth in this? No. They are now bombing Iranian embassy just for nothing. You know,
well, Abu Bakr, I'd like to be talking about Palestine every week. And there's more than enough to talk about Palestine every week. But we can't get talking about Palestine because Arabs are murdering each other for the edification and the entertainment and the interests of those who hate all the Arabs and all the Muslims.
They are not talking about that. And then your fellow Muslim who is trying to develop his own country, then you are going against him. This Saudi Arabia, see how they are treating, they are abusing human rights there. They are not talking about that.
No, you're right. Abu Bakr, thanks for the call. In Algeria, let's go to Tehran again. Talk to Hussein. Hussein in Tehran, welcome to the show.
Good evening, George.
Good evening, sir. Go ahead quickly.
I just wanted, hello. I
Yes.
just wanted to thank you for being so brave. Almighty has put your love into our hearts. You are one of the amazing gentlemen in the world. I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
God bless you, Hussein. Thank you indeed for that. And as I once said to a former senator in the United States, don't make the mistake of imagining that I'm afraid of you. I'm afraid only from God. And if everyone was afraid from God and acted in line with God's words delivered through the prophets, then the world would be a different place. So where better to go next than the place where the Prophet Muhammad himself brought Islam to the world, and talked to somebody called Muhammad in Saudi Arabia. Muhammad, welcome to the show, my friend. Go ahead.
Hello, George. Hi, how are you?
By the grace of God, good. Go ahead, Muhammad.
Always wonderful to listen and speak to you.
Thank you, sir.
My question, George, now is, before I ask you a question, like Saudi Arabia, we all Muslims condemn this cowardly attack on the innocent people of Lebanon, especially on the Muslims. Is this, regardless whoever's done it, Al-Qaeda or whoever's involved, we all condemn it. No one should praise it. No one should support them. Simple as that.
Good. Go ahead,
now,
sir.
My question to you now, George, is where we might disagree. Wouldn't you say, or wouldn't you expect people to say that Al-Qaeda actually attacked Iran for their own involvement in Syria? For them sending their own troops to fight Al-Qaeda?
Well, Al-Qaeda were murdering Muslims, Muhammad, long before the events in Syria. and you know this very well.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
Al-Qaeda has murdered innocent civilian people in your own country, in Saudi Arabia, long before the Syrian events. And by the way, Mohammed, after Al-Qaeda leaves Syria, I believe in defeat, they're headed to Saudi Arabia next. And they'll murder innocent people there too.
We already have that issue here. We're already suffering from them in Saudi Arabia.
Indeed.
But my question again goes back that Al-Qaeda is involved in Syria. We all know that.
Yes.
But they moved their war from Syria to Iran, to Lebanon, and specifically towards the Iranian embassy because of Iran's involvement in Syria.
Yeah, but of course, most of the people that they killed, Mohammed, were not Iranians. There was only one Iranian diplomat killed. All the other people were Lebanese and other nationalities that just happened to be outside the embassy, Mohammed.
True. I definitely agree with you about the cowardly attack on innocent people. Once again, my question is, it's very dubious and suspicious that Al-Qaeda attacked the Iranian cultural attaché, specifically the cultural attaché, and not the actual embassy itself. I mean, if you actually look into it, I mean, the Iranian cultural attaché is not exactly cultural.
No, I mean, God have mercy upon his soul, and no disrespect intended, but the cultural attaché is not making Iranian policy, either in Lebanon or in Syria or in Iran. The point is this, Mohammed. They did this either, my thesis, to provoke Iran or to bring about a sectarian backlash in Lebanon so that Lebanon could go up in flames in the way that Syria has gone up in flames. And the flames will consume all, Sunni, Shia, Christian, Druze, Kurdish, Arab, everybody is being burned in these flames. And that's why we have to be, as you were in your opening remarks, absolutely unequivocal about this. Al-Qaeda and its take on Islam is a medieval, obscurantist savagery and must be rejected by all Muslims as well as everybody else. And nobody should be giving it money. Nobody should be giving it weapons. And nobody should be making apologies for it. And I know that you were not, and I'm grateful indeed for your call. It was fitting, perhaps, that someone called Muhammad in Saudi Arabia should be the last call in this show. I've enjoyed it. It was marvelous for me. I hope to see you again next week.
Hello, if you comment, take the name and the place, you left that number. And just make sure that your television volume's set to 0. So 0. Can you spell your name for me? Yeah, I know. You redirect me, put through the phone number, and then we'll call you back. Comment? Can I have your telephone number? Okay, so what do you want to call it?